Well, thanks, Doug, for joining me today. We would love to talk with you more about your philanthropy, because you've been heavily involved in philanthropy for a number of years, and August is Black Philanthropy Month, and it's about time that we highlight your work. So thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
And a lot of people have heard, hopefully, about Family First Community Center, and that's your big effort. I know that you're involved, you've been philanthropic in a number of ways, but I'd love to have you share what was the inspiration around that.
Yeah, so Family First is basically this idea that if we create a facility where people can come and be seen and be safe and just enjoy being themselves in an environment that lends itself to being welcoming and warm, and then also providing a number of resources, services, and activities that all ages can enjoy. That's what we wanted to create. And the idea came from where I grew up. I grew up in the back end of the Salvation Army, right? That was, my mom worked in the front, the administrative part of it. And so during my days, my school age days, I was in the back during their summer camps, during football practice, basketball camps, all of the things that you would think of a kid would do during, summer, but also during the school year. And so I spent so much time there. And I realized as I got older, just the impact that that facility and that environment had on me as a young man. And I wanted to replicate that, and I wanted to enhance it. All the things that the Salvation Army couldn't afford to do, I want to be able to provide that in this community center. And so that's where the motivation came from. That's where the idea came from. But then now we have all these like-minded partners together with the City of Renton, Renton Foundation, Health Point, and just putting them all together to make this what we believe it can be for the community. And so, we're moving forward with that.
That's great. One thing that has struck me about your story is, because I think about philanthropy, you can have transactional philanthropy, which is writing a check, all that. And then I think of transformational philanthropy. And I remember hearing the story about you, and maybe it was Richard Sherman, you would go to a teriyaki place, and just your observation about what was going on with kids.
Yeah.
That is the human connection. And I'm not a reporter, but I did do a little research, and I pulled up an article, an interview with you in GeekWire in 2019. The article ends with this quote, because it talks about technology, but you say, "What I would ask of you as members of society, I wish that we would be more empathetic to one another, not only as business leaders or intellectual minds or entertainers, but just as human beings on this planet." And I think you're a really humble person. And I just want to, because people can start things, or pay for schools or whatever. But what do you think it is? Maybe it was your upbringing or your mom at the Salvation Army. What do you think put that in your heart, that ability to tune in to kids in a teriyaki restaurant, to have that empathy?
It's a good question. It's not just one thing. It's, it's life experiences. Quite honestly, I learned a lot about identity while I was playing football, and recognizing that, I just like anybody else, I just wanted to be recognized and seen for who I was, right? And valued for who I was as a human being. And, in my journey through that process, meeting my wife, starting a family, all of those things just aligned with what I had believed and what I had known during my childhood because of my upbringing, but was really reaffirmed through that process. And, during that time, we saw a number of things. Social change in our country was really slow and wasn't happening at the pace that we wanted it to. And we also saw things that, just impacted, I say us, a lot of the players on the team, African Americans, minorities, whatever you want to call us, like we see other people being treated a certain way. and we've seen it for countless number of years. We've experienced it ourselves, and it's like we're fed up. So how do we fix that? How do we change that? And the more and more I dove into the problems and trying to seek solutions, it's like the more discouraged I got, the more overwhelmed I got, right? And I know that that's a place that a lot of people in philanthropy and a lot of people who are trying to serve and do good work, they get to that point sometimes. They feel discouraged. But I knew that I would move beyond that at some point. It's just what was going to come out of that. And what I realized is, like, no matter what we try to accomplish in terms of solving problems and creating solutions and serving people, it always comes down to the same thing. You have to be empathetic to the person across from you. You have to be thoughtful and intentional about how you're serving and how you're showing up and how you're building a relationship. And so when we were in that teriyaki spot and I'm looking around and I'm seeing all these kids and I'm asking them, hey, like, where's the local basketball gym? It's like, okay, if I was a kid in their shoes, where would I want to go? And then now I'm thinking, okay, where would I want to go? What does that space look like now? What does that feel like when I step through those doors? Who are the people that are involved in this? And what are their motivations for being in that facility? And so when I think of it in terms of what am I trying to accomplish, it's like if I'm just more empathetic, if I'm more thoughtful and considerate about other human beings, whatever comes of that it'll be productive. It'll be sustainable. And so that's the lens that I'm trying to focus my attention through, is being as empathetic as I possibly can, because like I said, whatever comes of that, most likely it'll be productive. It'll be healthy.
Well, it really sounds like that's the culture you're creating around the Family First Community Center. So it's not just Doug Baldwin being empathetic, but that's the feel in that place, the look and feel of that place that provides each person when they come in a sense of belonging, a sense of dignity, a sense of inclusion. And that's what leadership in general is about, and then philanthropic leadership. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Appreciate you saying
that. So you've answered one of my questions about what you hope to achieve. I mean, I really hear that you want people to feel seen and have needs met too. What else would you say is your philosophy around philanthropy? I mean, like I said, you've been involved. I mean, Family First is your big thing, but how is you jumped into philanthropy, and how has that experience been? And how do you smile a little bit? What's your philosophy around it? If someone comes up to you and says, hey, get involved with this,
It's relational. Everything is about relationship. It's, and I kind of say that tongue in cheek because I know that's probably the cliche thing to say, but that's genuinely what I believe in. Like, I have to know you at some level, at some human level enough to say, okay, I can jump into a project with this person, or I can agree that our morals, our values are aligned to work together towards a common goal. Now, I say that tongue in cheek, reason being is because I also have a fundamental problem with philanthropy. I do. It does at times feel like a business, and I've come across organizations who we don't partner with, but have made the philanthropy side of things feel like a business rather than actually the intent of serving people, right? My belief, my thought process, or my theory, I should say, is that philanthropy should be an industry that's trying to get rid of itself, right? The more work that we do as servants and as philanthropists means the less of a need there is in the world, or should be, right? And so that should be the goal, that we're working to put ourselves out of business. Sometimes I don't see that, right? And so I have to question, through the intentionality, through the deliberateness of who we are working with. Now that's not to say that there's not organizations who have to exist for the purpose of providing support and resources for organizations like myself, right? Like the Renton Foundation, a wonderful organization that's been providing a number of different ways to support us to get us to where we want to get to. So I understand that part of it, right? But my philosophy is, again, like, who are the people that are leading it? Who are the people that are dictating the decisions that are being made? Because if those people, if I feel confident in those people, then I feel confident in the decisions that they're going to make, and ultimately what the organization is doing. So my philosophy is at the core of it. I'm trying to find good people. And when I say good people, I know that sometimes needs to be qualified, but what I mean by good people are people who don't have malicious intent, who aren't trying to be sneaky or strategic about their moves only to benefit themselves, but people who are genuinely trying to serve the greater good. And to me, that's what good people are.
Yeah, I think
Or who good people are.
that's a great point. One thing that comes to mind is I've been involved in a number of conversations just about the tendency to hoard in philanthropy. And you see this a little bit. I mean, there's national legislation now that will require donor advised funds, which are held at a community foundation. So this is a big community foundation conversation to, if they're endowed, they only have to give out 5%, and that's not very much money. And there have been efforts to really get people to spend down their donor advised funds. Or you just think about, I don't know if you've heard of Edgar Villanueva. He wrote a book called Decolonizing Wealth. And I'm involved in different circles with wealthy individuals about just looking at how is their money made, on the back, land being stolen on the backs of enslaved labor, and really taking a good look at where the money came from and acknowledging, well, this really isn't even my money because it was built this way. And so as a result of that, how do I act? How do I get rid of this that's not, or return it that's not even mine? And so those are some conversations we're involved with. And so yeah, I think you make a good point. And it's easy to get sucked into, this perpetual, because if we have a society that runs on scarcity and instead of abundance, like this fear, well, I have to keep my own machine going for my sake, because what happens if I let go?
Yeah. You said something that really resonated with me, or at least brought up the emotion that I don't want it to be misconstrued when I say that philanthropy should have all philanthropy should have the mindset of putting itself out of business, right? Because at the end of the day, I do believe that if we all are working towards that same goal of serving people, then yeah, a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So if we're all successful and all benefiting from the support from each other, then yeah, some organizations are not going to be needed, but other organizations are going to need to be sprouted up in a different arena, right? And so understanding to that point about the wealth that we generate as members of society, like we all benefit from the access and opportunity. Those of us who are or have access or are open to that access and opportunity, we benefit from others who don't. And so being able to think outside of the box in terms of what the bottom line actually looks like for companies and for organizations, that bottom line should really be reflective of the impact that you have in the community. So even if that bottom line is not a large number, that may still be a good thing. That may be even a better thing, because that means you're spending, to your point, you're spending more money effectuating change on any scale, a large scale, small scale, but you're using your resources and your talent to effectuate change. And so I agree with you. I think it's just it's a mindset switch. Instead of hoarding and trying to generate wealth just for ourselves continuously, it's like, okay, at what point do you say, I'm good, now the rest of this goes to everybody else, to the people that I've benefited from?
Right. Exactly. And especially if COVID-19 taught us anything, it's about looking out for the greater good in the community. I just came from, so we did this survey of 59 nonprofits primarily in the South King County region about what the last year has been like. And no, I'm sure this will not be a surprise to you, but Mental health, issues around mental health, isolation are huge, as well as, rent and security and things. And that's where we need to look at how are we supporting those efforts too. And I can't, I think of, again, Family First Community Center, that place of belonging, and that will be huge to address those issues.
Yeah, I agree with you. Mental health has been, it's been something that's been on top of mind since we began this project a long time ago. And, it's really hard to kind of pinpoint how you address mental health in different aspects of the services and programs we're going to be providing. So we've had to be very intentional about it from the beginning. And when I say from the beginning, it's like the thought process of what does it look and feel like when somebody walks through our doors? That's part of the mental health, the positive mental health part of this that we're trying to facilitate, right? So when you walk through the doors, you're going to be seen, you're going to be recognized, you're going to be part of the environment and the culture we're trying to build because you're stepping into our doors and we're grateful for that, right? It's just, I think I mentioned this earlier, it's a mindset switch. It's a flip from, what can I get from this person to how can I serve this person? And I genuinely think that if we have that mindset and intentionality with all of the things that we're doing with this facility, the layout, the people that we're hiring that are going to create the culture inside the facility, the programs, the partners, we're very selective and intentional about the partners we're partnering with. If we do all that, continuously being empathetic, right, and thinking about what it feels like for the individual who's being served when they come to our facility, I'm a believer that mental health component that we're so desperate for finding solutions for, I think it'll be mixed into that.
Yeah.
Right. It's just my philosophy. I don't have any scientific data to back that up. It's just how I feel. It's what I experienced when I was a younger kid. And I see the transformation that happened within myself, but also other people that I experienced that time with. And I want to replicate that.
Yeah.
I think there's something powerful there. Not to mention, yes, we will have the scientific, technical background to facilitate programs that are scientific based about mental health. So we have that component as well, but we're trying to cover all of our bases when we're building this.
That's great. Huge project. I know that COVID put a damp in the groundbreaking things, but do you have any idea when it'll start to be built, or looking at fall or winter?
Well, we're hoping in the next few months, if not sooner. That's the goal. I do have a meeting next week. I believe it's next week. And that we'll get more information there. So we're bringing together some of our bigger partners that were on the ground floor with us at the beginning to give them an update, but also for us all to be updated on where we're at. So I will know more next week.
That's great. That's great. And I guess the last question is, you mentioned earlier, being involved in philanthropy can be overwhelming. So what advice would you give others who are just starting out to think about being a donor or involved in their community?
Yeah, so as I was mentioning earlier, number one, I think it's a great question. But as I was mentioning earlier, I went through this same process of trying to figure out, how do I show up in the space of philanthropy and serving other people? And I didn't really have a firm understanding of how to best do that, like what to do, how to start, essentially. And so I had to fall back on what I knew, in which was team sports, right? Like I've been in team sports my entire life. I know what it feels like to be amongst people that you care about, that you want to serve, so that the greater good of us can go and accomplish the goal that we're seeking to accomplish, right? I experienced that at every level, from, I don't want to boast about it, but I'll just be honest about it, from Little League to high school to college, and even in the NFL, I've won everywhere I've been at. Not me per se. I've been a part of winning culture everywhere I've been at. And I know what it feels like. I know what it looks like. And so when I took that perspective of looking at how I would enter into philanthropy and how I would enter into serving, it's like, what am I good at? What am I passionate about? And so if I can filter that and focus that in a way to serve people, it's going to accomplish two things. Number one, I'm going to feel more fulfilled, right? Because I'm waking up in the morning, I'm excited about the things that I do, and I'm serving other people. So it's filling me, it's breathing life and oxygen into my life. But then two, I'm also becoming a more well-rounded human being because I'm around people who have different perspectives, who look at problems at different angles and are trying to find solutions to different problems from different perspectives. And that enhances me as a human being. And at the core of it, if that's not happening, then I don't think that I'm doing it right. Right? If I'm serving other people and I'm not becoming a better human being, then I don't know if I'm doing it right. And so my advice to people is really find what you're passionate about and then focus that towards serving people. And when you become a healthier person, a more well-rounded, perspective, human-centered, oriented person, the more impact you can have, the more change you're able to make. The people that you will attract just by being in that space will be able to help you and support you on your goals in philanthropy and in supporting and serving people. And so I guess all that is a roundabout way of saying to really focus on the journey as an individual, to get to a point where you're in the philanthropy space, but you all are actually effectuating change on a human level. And if we do that, I think the impact is maybe not measurable, but infinite. So I guess that's not measurable, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. That's great. That's really inspiring. So inspiring. Thank you, Doug.
Of course.
Can't wait to see all that's will come with Family First and your other things that you become involved in.